This is my mite treatment kit. It's an ice cream tub, clearly labelled. In there I keep everything that I use for mite treatments, gloves, disposable gloves to protect your hands, a couple of little egg cups and pots to put my syringes and things in. I always have some kitchen paper, a towel. Cotton pads are handy for mopping up little spills. And I don't want to muddle my syringe up that I use for the ivermectin with my medicine syringes, so that's why I keep them in here. If you've seen our old videos, we used to watch the Zeno, used to use the Zeno 450 or the 50, the mini one. That was because our previous vet, they used to recommend that, and that was the only treatment we could buy. But a couple of years ago we moved to another vet, and we now get the Panamec, which is just ivermectin, just comes in a little brown bottle, and instead of being the little tube that you drop it on, you just use a syringe, and it's a tiny amount. Very, very important that you will always follow the instructions very carefully. I keep my jars in little pots just to stop them falling over and to stop the syringe dripping everywhere. I do have disposable gloves because you're not supposed to get this stuff on your hands, and the instructions say that if it's on your hands, wipe it off immediately. Not wipe it and wash your hands. Don't rub it into the skin. Go and wash your hands immediately with soap and water. So especially if you have lots of rats to treat, I would really highly recommend you get some disposable gloves, and always wash your syringe out and leave it to dry just with water, but make sure it's thoroughly dry before you reuse it, because if you get water into this liquid ivermectin, it will render it useless. So if you've diluted it because you're using it on very small rats, then it has to be used immediately. That's very important. Now with new rats, we do everything we can to stop outbreaks of mites, but obviously with rescuing, new rats often have they either come to us with mites, or the stress of moving causes mites. But mites can happen at any time. Due to illness and all sorts of things. A sibling or a cage mate dying can trigger the mites. So always keep an eye out for the excessive scratching and sores and scabs and things. If you're new to rats, I would always get this mites diagnosed the first time at least from your vet. You can buy mite products from places like the Rat Warehouse now, but it's important that you know you're treating mites and not another condition. If you're experienced in treating mites, then you should recognise it easily if you get an outbreak another time. Now what we would do with our new rats is we always isolate them in a different room in a spare cage for up to 2 weeks to make sure they don't either have mites, infections or viruses. If they come in as a lone rat, we will still isolate them for a few days, and when we start the rat introductions, we would have to treat the whole cage, the new rats and the existing cage mates that we're introducing them to. And if your rats are all in the same room and you get a mite outbreak, you must treat every single rat and every single cage. That's really important. And what we do to prevent infection is, when we've handled rats with mites and we have other rats that are mite free, we would wash our hands and our arms very well with soap and water and change our clothes. That's also a really good thing to do if you've been gardening, or you've been visiting other people with rats, or you've been to pet shops. It just stops the infections and things spreading between the various different groups. So I've got Jack in the cage, which I hope he's going to behave in a minute. So I use the ivermectin. Now, I know a lot of people believe it doesn't work, but that is the only thing that is available to me. If you're in America, you might be given something called Revolution or Advocate, and they're basically the same sort of thing, but it's very important that your rats don't lick or get this into their mouths or eyes or nose or anywhere. It is a topical solution that goes on the skin, a spot-on drop on the skin, shouldn't be injected and shouldn't be given orally. Now, I know you can give the ivermectin to larger animals by mouth, but it's really not suitable for tiny animals like rats. Don't use anything, you know, even lemon juice. I've mentioned use it for your cage, but you have to wash it well. You shouldn't use something, even natural products like lemon juice, you shouldn't use on your rats. I just want to clarify that point. Powders, sprays and shampoos are not effective. The powders and sprays very dangerous to your rat's lungs, and the shampoo is really only going to treat the little mites that are on the surface. They won't do anything for internal parasites. Another thing that you must always watch out for, never give a mite treatment if your rats are underweight or if they are sick with another problem. Also, don't give it to any rats under 6 weeks old. There's special dosing measures for rats between 6 weeks and 4 months. You need to talk to your vet if you're treating young rats. And also, if you have pregnant or nursing rats, also get advice from your vet. Very, very important. If your rat is unwell because they have internal parasites, then obviously you need to talk to your vet and get advice on dosing them, because if you give too much, all these treatments will be toxic and can be fatal. The other thing that we need to mention is don't treat on a regular basis. You don't want to build up of this toxin. It's basically a toxin. It will build up and it can cause kidney damage if you use it too frequently. It's also important that you follow the instructions and you do the whole course. With my ivermectin, we will have the drops will go on one day, then 2 weeks later, and then another 2 weeks later. So over the course of 6 weeks, they will have 3 treatments at 2-week intervals. And I think that's the main little bits I need to tell you about that. The other thing is, it is so important that you have the weight of the rats and you actually give the right amount of drops, because you really, I've heard some horrible stories, people saying that animals have died. Now, I think a problem that may be occurring is they're licking the actual treatments off of each other. Now, because of this, we always treat the rats one at a time. We'll keep them out away from the others for sort of up to half an hour, but maybe longer. We just see how they're doing and make sure they're not having any side effects. Allowing the drops to dry on the skin. Now, with the Advocate and the Revolution, you would need to talk to your vet and see how long they recommend. But I would leave them separate for slightly longer rather than put them back too soon. Now, I know with the ivermectin it says that within 5 minutes it will be dry. Well, we find it often takes a lot longer than 5 minutes. It could take, you know, half an hour or so. So we will leave the rats separate for as long as we feel we need. We'll also do treatments early in the day in case anyone has an adverse reaction, and then we can get them to the vet. I'm going to get Jack out and see if he will let me show you where exactly we would put the drops. Come on, little Jack. Oh, good boy, Jack. Good boy. And now normally 2 of us will do this. We always have a towel. We'll give a treat. Now we will feel between the shoulder blades, there's a little dip. We'll pull the hair slightly over so that we can see the skin, and put the drops directly onto the skin. So it's nowhere that the rats can actually get to when they're cleaning themselves. Good boy, Jack. Good boy. Hey, good boy. Pop him back in there for a minute, shall we? Do you want to escape, Jack? So that's basically what we would do. Just pop him down for a minute so he's safe while I just end up here. Now, if you follow the rules, you shouldn't have any problems. But I think the most important thing is not letting the rats lick the drops off of their own coats or off of their cage mates. That could easily lead to an overdose, which can be fatal. So just be sensible, take precautions, follow the instructions, and hopefully, you know, nothing to worry about. Now, I know this is very stressful the first time that you have to treat your rats, but you know, just be sensible and just follow through everything that you're told by your vet and directions on the packets. You need the accurate dose. Any doubts at all, talk to your vet.